Hi everyone, yeah, what's up? Yes, my name is Etridu, and I humbly welcome you back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but hey, it was never intentional, trust me, it was never intentional. And the most beautiful thing is, I'm excited being before you wonderful people again. Well, we are back with our reaction videos, and today, I'm here to save you to another beautiful piece from Charlie Kirk. He calls this one, Can You Be a Christian and a Nationalist? No, let's reflect over this wonderful topic or subject matter briefly. Yeah, let's reflect over it. To identify, define, or describe some key terms in the topic, it has got to do with the word Christian and nationalist. And for Christian or Christianity, I wouldn't dwell so much on it because I believe you know a whole lot about it. In plain language, I will simply say it has got to do with exhibiting that Christ likeness. You know what I'm talking about? Yep. And on the part of nationalist, it simply refers to an individual who upholds the beliefs of his country with high regard. Let me simply put it that way. So, yeah, as a nationalist, you believe in a whole lot of stuff that your country actually puts in place or implement. So, I wouldn't dwell so much on this, ladies and gentlemen. Please sit back and let's enjoy this beautiful piece. Let's go.
Hello, how are you?
Good. My name is Nick. I'm an aerospace engineering student here.
Aerospace engineering.
So I'm particularly
That's
concerned
nice.
about your brand of Christianity. As a Christian myself, Christian nationalism I do not agree with at all. I think it's antithetical to the values of the early church. And I think, how do you reconcile especially white Christians in this America, marrying politics and power with their faith in this country?
There's a lot there. I've never described myself as a Christian nationalist. So I'm a Christian and a nationalist, so I've never used those two.
And then right there, that and nationalist, where in the scriptures does a Christian...
Well, thank you. Jeremiah 29:7, demand the welfare of the nation that you are in, because your welfare is tied to your nation's welfare. Let me continue. Daniel fasted and prayed for his nation. Esther and Mordecai cared for their nation. They were counsel to the king.
Right.
Nehemiah, Jeremiah, Joseph, Jacob. I could keep on going. Moses, Aaron. In fact, Moses was so political that he wrote an entire book of the Torah all about how to set up a government. It's the book of Deuteronomy. So, in fact, the Bible is an explicitly political text amongst many other things.
Now, can we interpret those texts in the light of the revelation of Christ? Because you just cited all Old Testament texts, but you've not once cited St. Paul.
Okay, yeah. If you want me to also, by the way, just so we are,
cite St. Paul about the kingdom of heaven and the governance.
Just so we're clear, do you think that the New Testament is greater than the Old Testament?
It is. It is greater because the revelation of Christ dictates how we interpret the Old Testament.
So you think that all of a sudden, like Genesis 1 is not as great just because of the New Testament?
The Old Testament was a type and shadow of the things to come, and now we live in the full revelation of Christ.
Again, that
is by definition
such
lesser.
a dangerous theological...
That's not true. That's Christological theology.
Hold on. Of course I believe in the resurrection. But to
Okay.
all of a sudden say that, like, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth is, like, somehow lesser because of the revelation of the New Testament. Christ even said, I did not come to abolish the law of the prophets, I came to fulfill the law. In fact, he said all the laws of the prophet hang on the two teachings, Leviticus 19 and Deuteronomy 3-5. However, to use a New Testament example, as you asked, says in 1 Timothy, pray for your leaders in authority by name that they might make righteous and great decisions. I'm going to continue. Christ our Lord said, on this rock build my what?
Church.
Wrong. Ecclesia. It's not the word church.
Oh,
the
the
word
English
church,
translations of Common Bible say church, so my bad.
well, actually, it shouldn't, because the original Greek term says, on this rock build my government structure. Ecclesia was a secular word used in that time, which was all about the advancement of freedom and liberty, which are the two words in Greek, eleutheria, isonomia, which are the two words there. So the point being, Christ called us to be salt and light. We as Christians should change the environment that we come in contact with. That's what salt and light do. So why should we then not care about changing government to be more Christ-like?
Well, you're conflating changing government to be more Christ-like with what I was discussing was nationalistic endeavors, which is the inherent view that our nation is better than other nations.
Well, it is.
No.
Well, God shows no partiality. So
Well, no, that's not true. God says in Revelation, I will judge the nations. God says that
the nations means ethnicity groups.
Well,
it doesn't mean borders of countries established.
Not necessarily. Hold on.
It does.
God says the Constitution of Israel will come at the end of the age. Borders is biblical. The entire book of Nehemiah is about building a wall around the nation of Israel. In fact, the idea of borders, the idea of sovereignty is an explicitly biblical idea.
Yes, but Israel is no longer defined by the physical borders. It's actually defined in the
Again,
spiritual sons and daughters of God who
that's
believe
a
in
Catholic
Jesus.
interpretation.
That's not just Catholic.
Again, it's primarily a Catholic interpretation. I don't share it. I don't want to get into that theological debate.
Okay.
Because we're going to get nowhere. My mind won't be changed. Your mind won't be changed. But around nationalism, why don't you tell me, and I will listen, what a Christian's role in government should or should not be?
Simple. Sermon on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and before the gentleman share his thoughts on the role of a Christian in nationalism, let us hit on one or two things pertaining to this conversation. You know, two beautiful points have been led by Charlie Kirk, but I agree with him on one part and disagree with him on the other part. Now let's quickly pick the first one that I do agree with him. He made this assertion that Christians need to, pick up that nationalist behavior, and I really agree with him 100%, trust me. As a Christian and as a private individual, I fully agree that we as Christians should try as much as possible to find ourselves in government. We need to make headway in parliament, occupy some prestigious positions in society. Or trust me, if we do act like, let me use the word, if we do exhibit that lukewarm attitude and say to ourselves that because we are Christians, we ain't got nothing to do with politics and other nationalistic stuff, bro, trust me, we are digging our own grave in a gradual process. Because it will get to a time, people will occupy prestigious places, and we as Christians sitting there aloof, they will end up dictating for us. It has already started happening, bro. It is happening in every corner of this beautiful planet. Today, you hear stuff like, hey, we need to legalize this because it is their right, it is their left. It is never their left. It is always their right, but it's never their left. It's what I'm talking about. So if you're able to have Christians occupying such prestigious positions, we are likely to kick such stuff from parliament before even becoming a bill for the president to append his signature on it. That is what I'm talking about. Christians need to occupy some prestigious positions in society. I repeat, Christians, wake up from your slumber. Occupy those beautiful and prestigious positions in society so that you can enact laws that are acceptable and appreciable in the sight of God. I didn't get an amen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so that was just by the way. Now, let me quickly throw more light on the second part. I disagree with Charlie. Fellas, did I hear Charlie say America is better or superior than the others? Bro, that is wrong assertion, bro. That is wrong assertion. Let me not mention any country's name. But if you believe one country is better than other, nah, you do not understand certain things about humanity and the world in general, bro. You claiming country A is better than people in another part of the world. Don't forget that country A solely depends on a lot of countries out there to survive fully. And I'm being honest with you, wonderful people. Let's quickly cast our mind back to what is happening to Burkina Faso. Respect to President Traore, man. We love you. We love you. We love you. You know, few days or weeks down the line, you've heard a lot of stuff in the news about outsiders trying to pass a lot of unhealthy comments about Traore. Mind you, all this has got to do with the fact that they are trying to sell him badly to the media and the masses out there. And, you know, one funny thing, recently I heard in the news that there's this particular general who is trying to create an impression that Traore, respect to the president, man, President Traore is generically using the country's natural resources in terms of gold and others to defend himself instead of protecting the entire country. Like, one funny question is, what has that got to do with you? What has that got to do with you? Because if you claim that you are better than the rest of the world, just stay at your own place, be in your lane. Let them be, bro, let them be. You get what I'm talking about? But if you claim one country is superior to others, why do you think poking your nose into the affairs of countries with beautiful resources, like the example I just cited? You get it? You are better off than me. I understand. stay in your lane and let me stay in my lane. How difficult is that? So that's one thing I really disagree on the part of Charlie. But hey, I wouldn't waste my time, It is always a learning process. As we watch this particular video, we get the opportunity to share our thoughts on the subject matter being discussed. If we agree, we are good to go. If we disagree, we always share our thoughts. I always encourage you wonderful people out there to keep your comments coming. Let me know what you think about what we are discussing at the comment section. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a long way to go, so let's proceed.
Them out. Operate in that way, and that's
What does that look like in practice in America in 2025?
well, in practice, it doesn't look like what has happened in history with Christians who have tried to establish their governance in the lands. For example, American history, slavery. Majority of white Christians supported the institution of slavery. Move on to Jim Crow.
That's actually not true.
No,
Time
that is
out.
true. That is true.
Time out. 9 out of 13 of the states, by the time of the ratification of the Constitution, were already abolishing slavery. 9 out of 13.
Let's move on to Jim Crow.
Time out. Slavery actually had a minority approval rating by the time of the U.S. founding. We were the second nation ever to abolish slavery because of Christianity. So let me just ask a very moral question. The Christians that got involved in the abolition of slavery, like John Quincy Adams and William Wilberforce, they did it in the name of Christ. Were they wrong?
No, but those were small minority Christians. Majority of the Christians of the time.
Movements.
Let's move on to Jim Crow because majority.
You're moving on
No, because I didn't finish my statement.
But it was
You interrupted my
Christianity that
statement.
abolished slavery.
It was a sect in Christianity that abolished it. It was a remnant of Christians who didn't go with the established order of what Christians believed.
Well, no.
We can go to Jim I Let me finish the statement, please.
Okay, I mean,
in Jim Crow, majority of white Christians also supported not abolishing Jim Crow and keeping the institution. They did not support the civil rights movement. This is documented data.
Well, not supporting the Civil Rights Act and supporting Jim Crow are two completely different things.
Those go hand in hand
Well,
together.
the Civil Rights Act was a disaster. I mean, that was a terrible idea. But, I mean, that's a whole separate issue. But just so we are clear, because the Civil Rights Act hyper-racialized America. We actually talk about race more after the Civil Rights Act than before. We were promised a color-bride society. We got a race-obsessed society. But just to be clear, today in America, what does a Christian properly involved in government look like?
I'm just going to say the same thing I said, the Sermon on the Mount.
Okay,
Love your neighbor as yourself. Take others before your own needs. Feed the poor, clothe the sick, care for the widow, advocate for these values.
I agree with all that. And so, for example, to care for the poor and care for the vulnerable, abolish abortion. Right?
So abortion is another issue, but what about the living right now? Because you don't seem to be for raising taxes on billionaires.
Of course not. Why would I?
So if you want to legislate morality, abortion, I want to curb the sin of greed.
But so you want to curb the sin of greed
So
by taking other people's stuff? That's pretty greedy of you.
No, it is not. It is not.
It's no coincidence that Anthony Fauci's pardon started on January 1st, 2014. This is the year the Obama administration took the four-letter agencies. They took control of Ukraine. Allegedly, Pfizer and the FDA fast-tracked approval for the mRNA vaccine. This coordinated global development wasn't just about public health. It's about power, control, and profit. And coincidentally, the media is now sounding the alarm about a new strain of bird flu, one that could spread rapidly, overwhelming our healthcare system. This is why you need the wellness company's contagion emergency kit. It includes 5 life-saving medications like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Tamiflu, and a nebulizer, designed to protect you from the next global threat. Ordering is simple. Fill out a digital intake form, and your kit arrives in 1 to 2 weeks. Don't wait for the next outbreak to catch you off guard. Stay ready for the unexpected. Get $30 off at getwellwithcharlie.com and use promo code Charlie. Kits are only available to U.S. residents.
Bro, did I just watch an ad as part of Charlie Kirk's content? Bro, like this is my first time, I've never seen Charlie at the mid part of a video advertising. Is that a new development I've not seen? Because I know it's been a while reacting to any piece from Charlie, but I'm just surprised seeing an ad. It is what it is. Well, all right. Let me not dwell so much on that. There's a reason for that, definitely. But hey, permit me to acknowledge the gentleman right here. He's such an intelligent dude, no doubt, and I love the fact that he holds his Christian beliefs and principles in high regard like myself, and I really admire that about him. He is such a gentleman, very eloquent, Most of the times I see people debating Charlie. When they realize Charlie is overcoming them in the course of the conversation, they start using curse words here and there. But this gentleman has been able to maintain his position right from the beginning to this part of the conversation. No curse words, no insults, facts, book to book, facts, scriptures by scriptures. And I really love that about this gentleman. Such a wonderful dude, bro. I love that about you. I love that about you. Just keep it up, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Before we proceed, they made mention about something pertaining to increasing taxation for the rich. I don't know about you. I dream of being a billionaire, trust me, that's part of my dreams. And honestly speaking, I'm also against increasing taxes or taxation for the rich. Let me simply put it that way, because I believe that's unfair. You understand? Normally when I have conversation with my peers and people older than me, certain things do come out on board, and without thinking twice about it, I go like, this is unfair. I really hate unfair treatment in society. I really hate unfair treatment in our part of the world. So trust me, increasing taxes for the rich is something I will never support as a private individual. I don't want to call this as a privilege. It is told that privileges are advantages one enjoys due to his or her position. So I wouldn't describe this as a privilege. But even if it's a privilege for the poor, then that is an opportunity for you and I to motivate ourselves to be very rich, like filthy rich, so we wouldn't even have to pay more taxes. You understand what I'm talking about? But hey, let me hit on that fact again. I am against increasing taxation for the rich. The tax component should be the same in percentage wise, whether rich or poor. And that is something I stand in for. All right, let me not talk more, ladies and gentlemen. Let's proceed.
Just to be clear,
the data shows is that
raising
the
taxes
past 40 years, the wealth in this country, the wealth inequality has increased, which is the top 1% has grabbed the wealth of the majority bottom.
There are reasons why that's happened, but just
Why
so we are clear.
Why is that happening?
I'm happy to explain that. Just so we are clear, saying we're going to just raise tax on the billionaires, that statement, you just violated 2 out of the 10 commandments.
That's not true.
Thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet.
How
We're
is
going
that
to take
stealing?
other people's money.
How is that stealing?
Because it's their money.
We live in a society that is run by taxes. How is that stealing?
Well, taxations are a form of theft, definitionally, because it's not the government's money. It is private property that you earn when the government extracts it by force.
Someone breaks into your house, you call the police. When you have a fire, you call the fireman. When you want to drive, you drive on roads. When you want to mail, you use the U.S. Post Office. These are all taxes. Yeah, we all contribute as a society.
Of course.
This is elementary stuff. It's not theft.
I love this guy, bro.
How do you run a society
hold
without
on. What
taxes?
happens if you don't pay your taxes?
I mean, you get the law handed to you, but...
Oh, okay, so therefore, so you pay taxes at gunpoint.
If you break the law, you should pay the fine.
No, exactly, that's the point, is that taxes are not voluntary. Nor do I think they should be voluntary. You just have to be honest and say, yes, at some form, the government has to forcibly take some of your money away. I agree with that. But just, we're going in so many different rabbit trails. Let me ask you just like a fundamental, simple question. Is that, do you want to see a government that fights for Christian principles or not?
That excludes the rest of the population? If we're not living in a theocracy, no, I want equal representation. And the church doesn't need to have government in order to thrive. In fact, in suffering and humility, the church thrives.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's like totally insane, but that's fine.
How is that insane? Go look at the early church.
You want to invite persecution, is what you're saying.
I'm not inviting it, but
yes,
Christians ought to welcome it and embrace it and go through it.
Okay, but sometimes persecution results in the unjust suffering of millions of people unnecessarily. And so you should never invite evil into this world.
Did Jesus not promise that to us?
Well, did Jesus promise trials and difficult times?
Yes.
Yes, of course, but we should not invite it voluntarily. You know what that's like saying? Let's just, have no military. Everyone can invite us because persecution will make us stronger. It's such a ridiculous, abstract argument.
I mean, I don't see any scripture supporting a military for Christians.
You don't think we should have a military?
A government can have a military, but Christians...
Yeah, I mean, look, man, you got to go a lot deeper into the scriptures. You have a dangerously surface level.
You should read early church fathers on how they view violence and
actually,
the military.
So you want to talk about early church fathers? Tell me about St. Augustine's just war theory.
You tell me about it.
Tell me, you just brought up early church fathers.
No, you tell me about it.
Tell me about St. Augustine in the City of God, 3rd chapter, just war theory.
Well, I don't really agree with a lot of St. Augustine because
he's the most popular early church father
in the West. But there's the East, St. Athanasius, St. Gregory of Nyssa. Origin, all these different names that you probably are not familiar because it's in the East, but most early church fathers condemned violence for, if you're in the church, you must leave the military, quit service, because you now belong to the kingdom of God, which is operates on a different
Do you agree
plane.
with that?
I agree that if you're a Christian, you have no reason to commit violence for any reason at all.
I think that's insane. Honestly.
Just look at the example of Jesus. Was he put on a throne, or did he embrace the cross?
It says at the end of age, Jesus will come with a sword to judge.
Are you reading Revelation literally?
Yes, of course
So
I am.
he has an actual sword out of his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's your
The
contention?
interpretation that's common is Revelation, when he has a sword, that's the word dividing your soul and spirit, piercing the hearts. It's not, he's not waging war on people and killing millions of people.
That Christians should not serve in the military is your contention?
That's my belief. You don't have to believe that.
Yeah. We're going to have to get to the next question.
All right.
That's a new one. I got to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this has been a beautiful conversation, trust me. And I like how the gentleman ended. This is my belief. You do not necessarily have to believe the same thing. And I like that because I was definitely going to hit on it. You know, it is said that if you do not stand for something, you fall for anything. And this has been a clear demonstration on the part of the gentleman that he stands for something regarding the Christian perspective. As I made mention previously, I am also a Christian. I hold my reputation in high regards. But I disagree with the gentleman with some of the comments he made, irrespective of the fact that I really admire him for standing for something. You know what I'm talking about? And like the last thing he said, for instance, that as a Christian, yeah, you got to leave the military. Yeah, I disagree with that. You understand what I'm talking about? I disagree with that. And I stand by the words I used previously, that Christians should find themselves in various places, including politics, and not just politics. I will include military this time, because we need to find one or two ways to protect ourselves physically, and also look at the spiritual perspective. And how do we protect ourselves physically from external aggression? And that is through the military, you understand? That's through the military. So we can't abandon the military, for instance, and claim to be Christians. What if we wake up one day and the church has been burned to ashes? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a beautiful experience. This has been a beautiful conversation. And as I made mention previously, we are back. So keep checking this particular channel, because I am not resting this time, bro. I have a whole lot of wonderful content for your wonderful people. Again, my name is Esredo, and I'm excited you've gotten the opportunity to do this. If you love the content I do create, or if you love what I do, and you genuinely want to be part of this beautiful family, do what? Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and keep your comments coming. Peace.